Welcome to episode 37 of Shane 9, August 25th, 1999. This Wednesday release, we've just got one movie to talk about, and it's a movie called In Too Deep. 1999 was a great year for Omar Epps because we've already talked about the Mod Squad, we've already talked about The Wood. Now we've got his third film of this year, In Too Deep. Next year, he's going to be coming out with one of my all-time favorite movies, especially sports movies, Love and Basketball. So, like, Omar Epps right now, super hot, doing a lot of great things. And opposite of Omar Epps in this movie, we have one of my favorite rappers. And it's literally just because, like, I think he's one of the coolest dudes that I would want to hang out with. Like, it's Snoop Dogg and then him. Like, I think LL Cool J just seems to be one of the coolest, hippest, down to earth, like, he just oozes with awesome in every interview that I see him in, and he just like he seems friendly, he seems open, he likes to joke, he likes to laugh, like he seems like he's just a lot of fun to be around. Like he doesn't seem like he's a dick, like he's making jokes, he seems like a kind of guy that I want to hang out with. I do not want to hang out with the character that he plays in this movie. That's 100% sure. Like it is an amazing performance that he gives in this movie to go from what I perceive him in real life as to the character that he plays in this movie. So In Too Deep is a undercover cop film. Like if you just want to boil it down to something simple, that's what it is. It's in the veins of Donnie Brasco or like Deep Cover. I mean, you could even go as far as Point Break, I guess. Like down the road, a couple of years later, we're going to get a movie, a Ray Liotta film called Narc. It kind of feels very similar to that movie, also. Like what works with these films is showing characters and their struggles between like being law enforcement and then like the level of bad that they have to get to for these characters that they're forced to portray. I would say this film takes things like to an entire other level. Like all these other movies I've talked about, they've got good scenes and good moments where there's like a struggle for our main character, but like how deep Omar Epps' character gets sucked in this movie, like it's very psychological. It's a lot of stuff going on in his head, and like how he begins to not be able to distinctly draw a line between like who he really is and the character that he's playing. And like there's scenes that he has with Nia Long where like his gangster attitude like takes over his emotions when he's supposed to be like the good guy, being with her and stuff. And like just his character crosses the line with her in a way that like he normally wouldn't, because he's letting that thug mentality kind of like ooze into his normal life. But like he just like that scene even plays out farther when he, as a law enforcement official, has an interaction with other law enforcement officials, and he just does not act like law enforcement. Like he's so psychologically broken into his character that he just can't pull himself back into being like the good guy that he really is. Like, and I mean that seems pretty intense. Starting off with what he does to her, and then how it flows out into the cops trying to arrest him, and like it's an amazing performance by Omar Epps. Like I can't say it any other way. Other things about this movie, like it's set in Cincinnati. I think it was filmed in Cincinnati, but it's definitely like set in the Cincinnati Police Department, and he goes undercover, in Cincinnati. And so, like thinking about it, I honestly can only name one other movie that I know of that has ever been like set in Cincinnati, and that's the amazing 1993 film Airborne, the rollerblading street hockey movie that I grew up idolizing because, like, I mean, that's what I did growing up, and like Midwest, like surfer dude moving to the Midwest, Cincinnati, like what I mean, whatever. So here is our second film that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's others, but I can only name two of them that I know of that are set in Cincinnati. Don't even know if either one of them were filmed in Cincinnati, but two movies set in a city 90 miles east of me, a city that I go to fairly often. So like I kind of like, I mean, it's Cincinnati, so it's not like great, but like it's still both of those movies just feel close to home for me, like being set in the Midwest and whatnot. Let's look at some other members of the cast. We got Stanley Tucci, the amazing Stanley Tucci. He plays Omar Epps' handler in the movie. And as always, he gives a flawless performance. Like the emotion and lack of bullshit that he brings to his character, and like his honest level of concern for Omar's character's like sanity and well-being plays out so well. Like his higher ups are the ones that keep pushing for everything and don't seem to care about what Omar's character is going through. But like Stanley Tucci, like he just he's really actually concerned about like everything that's going on around trying to bust God. Oh yeah, by the way, forgot to mention it earlier. LL Cool J's character goes by the moniker of God in this movie. Like that's his nickname, his street name, his gangster name, and so like that's interesting. Like it's a very well done choice for the script. It plays well with some of the lines of dialogue and the way things play out. But like, so they're trying to bring down God, and like everybody else is pushing Omar Epps' character to keep doing all this stuff. But like Stanley Tucci is just like, we have to pull him back. We are putting him in there too deep. He's starting to lose. Like it just shows that he really cares about Omar Epps' character and like their relationship and like and they have an absolutely amazing scene. Like there's a, I wouldn't say a climactic scene, but there is a fight between the two of them where Omar Epps is not able to back down from his gangster mentality. You know, when he's trying to justify what he's doing to Stanley Tucci, and like that's the moment where Stanley Tucci decides, like, you are too much in this persona. Like you can't see the real world and who you're supposed to be as a law enforcement agent. So he pulls him out. Like as his boss, he pulls him out from the job. And it's actual kind of powerful scene. And like I said, Stanley Tucci just takes no bullshit from his character. Like it's a great dynamic between the two of them. Like they start off very much on the same page, and then as things evolve, you see how Stanley Tucci stays good cop, even when Omar Epps crosses over into the gray area of what he's doing. From that point of the plot, when they pull him out, that's when we get him shipped off to another city. I think he goes to, like Columbus, Ohio, or something. That's where he ends up meeting Nia Long. And they've got some great chemistry between them for the most part. Like, they've got some really good scenes together. Not once his alter ego starts taking over and treating her poorly. Like, I mean, the acting between them is still really well done. It just kind of sucks for their character arc. Like all that happiness that they had at the beginning of their relationship is like quickly replaced by him and his attitude and his anger and his obsession. And like it's kind of a gradual process, but it's kind of sped up, I guess, a little bit for the movie. But like watching this good cop go down this road and get lost behind a character. He's supposed to be playing a character and then seeing that bleed over into his like real life and real like, relationships and stuff like that. Again, it's one of the things that makes this movie so well done. I do have a complaint about the movie. My biggest complaint about the film is the fact that, okay, so like anybody who knows me knows I love nonlinear storytelling. It's my favorite thing to do in when I write scripts, and like nonlinear storytelling is just a great way to tell a story, in my opinion. I like the unfolding of how you get to where you're going and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, the entire opening of this film is done non-linear. We have scenes of Omar Epps teaching a class of cadets. Essentially, we assume they're being taught how to be undercover cops. Um, as he's asking them questions and putting them in hypothetical situations, it cuts back to showing him in these exact situations that he's talking about. So he is, preaching to them from his experience and trying to get them to see what they would do. And they continually fail at answering his questions. And so he then explains what they should do in a situation like that. And we flash back and we see the way he acted, the way he's telling people, essentially saying that, I did everything right, which is fine. But seeing that play out in a nonlinear story, I thought was really well done. I really enjoyed those first like 20 minutes of the movie that play out that way. And then it completely abandons that. And we find out at the end of the movie that this class that he's teaching is, where his character ends up after all the shit that he goes through in the movie. But like, I personally could have and would have enjoyed more of that type of a narrative structure to the entire film, where they could have spread it out where he's teaching this class, or I mean, even if you gave me a different classroom or a different time period or a different clothing or a different setting, like just having it be structured in a way of he is talking to cadets about his experiences, and then we as the audience are experiencing those through flashbacks of him getting them to understand the situations that they could potentially be in that he was in. Like, I personally think that would have been a stronger narrative story, but like, don't get me wrong, the movie itself is still solid. Like, it's a great movie. Like, that doesn't take away from it that it doesn't do that. But if I were writing the movie, that's how I would have done it. I think they did such a good job at the beginning. Like, I don't understand why they went away from that narrative structure. But it's fine. They did what they did, and it's fine. And I still love it. And like that's just me. Like that's just my choice with the movie. So like I've mentioned some of the big name players in the cast already. There's a couple other people to mention. Pam Grier, Jackie Brown herself's in this movie, along with the rapper Jermaine Dupri. He's got kind of a funny little bit part in the movie. He gets a shit beat out of him. We've got two guys named Hill Harper and Jake Weber. Both not super big popular name people, but like they did a lot of decent stuff in the early 90s that was enjoyable. And they kind of both went on to have success on television, not shows that I watched, but I know they were both successful on TV shows. We've also got two other musical acts in this movie. We got the musician Maya, and we have Nas, who both have small bit parts in this movie. It's a lot of talent in this movie, but not just acting wise, but also they put a bunch of good musicians in there who I assume a lot of their music is on the soundtrack. I don't know the soundtrack super well, so I can't tell you who is on the soundtrack. Rewatching the movie, I did enjoy a lot of the rap music, even though it wasn't stuff that I knew very well. Some of the songs I knew, but like I'd say there was more songs in the movie that I didn't know, but like it was still good, well done music for the movie. I can't reiterate this fact about the movie enough. LL Cool J shines in this movie, like literally steals the movie, even though he is the bad guy, and he like one of my biggest complaints, especially with like Marvel movies nowadays, is how you always have to make a understandable and relatable bad guy. Like you can't just have like a big bad evil guy. I don't necessarily think that. Well, see, now that I'm processing it all, like that is kind of what they do with it with God in this movie. Like he is so violent and so terrifying, but he's also kind of like this Robin Hood like character. Like he cares about the people in the community. He does things for people in his community. He treats people well until people fuck with him. And then when that happens, like that's when you see how evil this guy really is and like how terribly menacing he is to people. Like he's like a sadistic Robin Hood at that point. Like um, there's a few scenes in this movie where they actually cut away from the violence, from the things that he's doing, specifically like the bathroom scene where he essentially you're led to believe that he cuts off a guy's tongue off camera. I actually really dig that about this movie. It's one of those I've talked about it before about a Hitchcockian thing to do. Hitchcock said that it's always scarier what you don't see. Like what your mind makes up is more frightening than anything he could show you on screen. So it's kind of like a Hitchcockian trick, and they do it a couple of times in this movie, and I think that helps and adds to just how menacing LL Cool J's character is, and then like how joyful and happy he is after he's that violent. Like he comes out of that bathroom scene with a giant smile on his face, like he really just enjoyed what he did in there. And our brains already processed it was bad, and then we like process him taking joy out of everything that he did. Like it is an outstandingly amazing performance by LL Cool J, and like there's literally one scene that stands out the most to me. And if you've seen the movie, you understand the pool table scene. Like one of God's own henchmen not double crosses him, but like steps out of line, does something very bad. So God takes his naked ass and puts him on a pool table, and after beating him over the head with a pool cue, he then anally violates him with the pool cue, and it's graphic. I mean, like it's tough to watch. It's a cringy scene. Like it is so violent, and when you actually witness that one, but like it, it just takes this character to another level, and like the amount of like all of these things that Omar Epps' character like watches, and he doesn't participate in them, but he's there and sees them happening, and it's like things that like if he was a cop, like he should stop them. Like it's all these moments that he's put into where they're essentially testing him. Like, are you a cop? A cop would stop me from doing all these really terrible things that you're watching me do. So it's kind of how they're testing his character and the things he has to like he has to stay calm and cool about it because he has to stay undercover. And so like just there's some shots in some of those scenes that are looking at his character, and like Omar does an amazing job of just portraying like I know this is wrong, but I can't say or do anything about it. Like I can't blow my cover. Like the timing is not right for them to know who I am. and the timing is not right until it is. And then like that's when we get to the end of this movie, and like it kind of jumps at you quickly. Like when they're setting up what ends up being the end of the movie, it kind of doesn't feel like the end of the movie. It kind of feels like something's going to happen here, but then they're going to go on and it's going to, they're not going to arrest him yet. And so, like, then it suddenly does happen and everything goes down and Omar is exposed and LL Cool J sitting there in handcuffs. And then there is literally an absolutely amazing moment between LL Cool J and Omar Epps. Like there's this shot, and it's a shot of LL Cool J's character realizing that Omar Epps is a cop. Like, because all the other cops around start making comments towards Omar Epps' character about why don't you read him his rights? Why don't you do this? And just the look on LL Cool J's face while he's processing this, and he goes through stages in his face, like he goes through denial, and he starts making like joking, and not really like joking, but like he starts making comments about how ridiculous that is, and all the stuff I've seen you do, and like LL Cool J's performance as his character is breaking down the realization that I did get busted by this guy who's been like a brother to me for a couple of years throughout this bust that was going on. Like LL Cool J is just phenomenal, and it's all over his face, and it is all over his voice, and it is all over his performance right there as he finally has to accept it and gets put into the cop car, and like just that final look on his face when he's being driven away. But then it cuts to Omar Epps, and Omar Epps has an equally amazing performance of just like it's almost like relief, but at the same time, he's I don't want to say disappointed, but like he realizes the weight of what everything is done that led up to this and like everything that he's gone through. And he just put away this guy that he's been trying to do for years. Like it's such an amazing two-headed performance between the two of them that is just so well done. And I literally don't think LL Cool J has any more lines in the movie after he has that conversation with Omar where he's denying stuff, like where LL Cool J is in denial about what's going on. Like after that confrontation, like it's just all about LL Cool J's facial expressions for the duration of the movie. For oh, you know what? I do think in the courtroom, I do think he yells out something to Omar Epps' character as he's being taken away. But like, there's just these like, in the courtroom scenes, he's wearing glasses, he's all done up in his suit, like he looks like respectable for a gangster or whatever. But like, it's just these looks on his face, and then the glares that he shoots back to Omar Epps' character, just like it's so well done in those scenes. Like, and then, like I said, that final like eye contact that they make as he's, sentenced to life in jail and he's being taken away. And I do think he has a line of dialogue there that he throws out at him. But like they just have this look between the two of them that is so like just emotional and powerful for everything you've gone through watching this movie. So 25 years later, this movie still holds up. Like I still think this is a really, really well done film. But what I want to say about it is I think I look at it differently now. I think 25 years ago, I got caught up in the anger and the emotions of like a good character doing bad things or like blurring into that dark territory. Like, at 19 years old, I enjoyed the idea of a noble person who was being pulled into doing some evil stuff. Like, I think just where I was at that point in my life, like anger, like took me to a different reason for being gravitated towards this movie. Like, I think I really was attracted to the violence in this movie. But now, as the old man that I am, I think I'm really able to appreciate how great the story and the performances are in this movie. I think it's a really great character study on what psychologically and emotionally, undercover work does to a person. And I think it goes deeper and farther than a lot of the ones that I mentioned that, came before it. So granted, not saying anything bad about those. I just feel like this one, in my opinion, probably does a better job of getting those emotions to the audience. So that is the movie In Too Deep. I will be back in 2 days to talk about what came out that Friday. And we'll talk about three kind of mediocre, well, two very mediocre movies and one okay movie from 1999. It's not the best weekend, but we'll talk about it then.